Mioogfest with Synthtopia. My name is Václav, this is Peter, and we're here representing Bastl Instruments. And the interesting thing about being here is that we're officially announcing our collaboration with Peter, who is known as Casper Electronics, and he's been making some very unique, boutique synthesizers, such as the Nova Drone. And basically he moved to our city, to Czech Republic, so we could work on projects together. So we find our collaboration very fruitful, and we have a lot of big plans coming up the pipeline.
Yes, big future.
So yeah, so we're based in Czech Republic, and we are sort of a community-based company, and we do a lot of community-oriented things. We're doing a festival next week where a lot of our co-workers gonna play and also co-organize the festival. And I guess you might be familiar with what we do. We mainly focus on producing and designing Eurorack modular synthesizers, and but we also are into making tabletop instruments, such as is the Micro Granny. That is one of our first bigger products. And here at Mioogfest we have a new thing to show, and it is called bitRanger, and it's a handheld modular synthesizer. It's battery operated, it has a built-in speaker, and there is a patch bay in which you can basically program patterns. And because Peter designed this beautiful object, I think it's appropriate for him to tell us a little bit more about it.
So this is our first, sort of the first product that's come out of our collaboration. So I moved to Brno a few months ago, and we were working on a bunch of different ideas. But one of those things in this sort of community outreach is we also just opened a store in Brooklyn called Detective Squad, and that's sort of an extension of our creating these objects that sort of encourage collaboration between creative people who want to explore different ideas. So this is a space to really go and play with things and play with bitRangers and our line of products, and as well as a bunch of other European brands, people who do sort of short runs of unique instruments. And so yeah, that's an outlet for us to explore that. But yeah, so this is the first thing we've done, and as Václav said, it's a handheld modular synthesizer that has some conventional features and then a whole bunch of more unconventional features. So you start with a core of oscillators, so you're able to manipulate the pitch of things, and you have an LFO to change the frequency. But then you have this whole modulation section. So the idea with this is that you have a tone, but then you can start to introduce time-based elements and change to that. So changing the pitch or muting different channels. So this is also in stereo, so that's the left channel and that's the right. So you're able to manipulate those two channels in subtle and not so subtle ways. And as you go, you just sort of keep building up more and more complex patches. In this process, you are inventing as well as discovering. So the intention with this is that you're able to go at it as an engineer and say, I want to create this kind of system that I can integrate with my drum machine or whatever. But also that as you do this, as you keep plugging in connectors, you're discovering things that you hadn't even thought of before. So my background through Casper Electronics is really based in circuit bending. So this is really a hybrid between a lot of the ethos of circuit bending and the amazing expansive potential of analog modular systems, especially Eurorack. So this instrument is made to give people that, what happens when I do this approach, which I can explain maybe in a teeny bit more detail, but then it integrates really smoothly with lots of other systems. So it's got these inputs and outputs. Well, first of all, on the inside, there's about 120 patch points where you're connecting clock divisions and multiplexer address bits and all of these sort of complex binary functions to itself, but then you can connect to the outside world. So here you have a VCO input and you have a clock input. And then on the other side you have a CV output. Sorry, that's a CV input that goes to the VCO here. And then the clock input that goes to the LFO. And that resets the LFO. And then on the output side, you have the clock out, which is basically the LFO divided down. You can choose divisions of that clock. And you have a CV output. And that CV is sort of a combination of some of these bits in the system added together. So that would work by plugging lots of bits into this byte section, and that byte section is routed up to the CV output. So with this, you're able to then plug it to drum machines like the Pocket Operator, or to systems like the Mioogfest. It can work completely on its own, but these interconnectivity ports here allow it to be integrated into larger loops. And then you have a stereo output that's has two signals, which I think I've mentioned before are these two lights there, which represent the sound that's coming out. And you can use that as an audio signal as well as a pulse signal if you want to use it to trigger other things. So there's a lot of ways to use the timing elements of this as well as the audio elements to integrate into other systems. So I've set up a patch here where I've plugged a bunch of these binary math bits here into the pitch modulation, and then I'm using it to sync the drum machine. So the drums are not coming from this, but interconnectivity is a really huge part of what this was designed to do. So I think it's especially nice to have this in there. So I've got a basic sequence set up here. Then I can patch some more cables in to try some other stuff. Let's try this. And then I can change the sounds with this switch here.